Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. We have a live preview and prediction video to bring to you guys. So that does mean that you guys can get your questions in, you can get your queries in, and anything that's on your mind, Australian Open wise. So what we're going to do is we're going to first of all get into the WTA side first. Should we do WTA side first? You know what? No, let's do ATP side first. Let's do ATP first. I've got a couple of interesting things to go through as well with each matchup. There's a couple of interesting tennis insights which I'll talk a little bit about because they're actually a page on Instagram, but really they're a tennis analytics company who have done lots of bits for the ATP Tour Finals, and I found their page on Instagram, and not really many people use them, and it's a surprise because the stats that they give and also the insight they have is very valuable. There's also a couple of interesting stats on time on court, etc. We'll go through, and then ultimately discuss a little bit about how I think each match is going to play out and what to look out for. So Matthew in the house. Evening, Matthew. How are you doing? How are you doing? Good to see you here as always. So what I want to do first is I want to talk. Should we talk about WTA first or ATP? I think let's start on the ATP side first. So let me just get the quarterfinals up even for the men's. I put a poll out for the women's because I feel like if I put a poll out for the men's, everyone's going to talk and say, look, it's going to be Djokovic to win, right? So there's no point in you putting that out. So these are the quarterfinals for the men's. So you can see here, Khachanov versus Korda is a match that's playing tomorrow. Same with Tsitsipas versus Lehecka. They are on one half, so the winners of those two matches will play each other. Then we have Rublev versus Djokovic on the other half, and Ben Shelton versus Tommy Paul. I don't think anyone would have guessed that would have been a quarterfinal. I mean, that is absolutely crazy to see, but also very cool to see that we've seen players like someone like Ben Shelton, who's never played in the Australian Open, let alone in another country. Like, he's never played outside of the US, and he finds himself in an Australian Open quarterfinal. Ghost says Lynette is taking a championship, bank on it. Lynette's been playing really well. She had a very good match against Caroline Garcia, I thought, as well. We'll talk more about her in a bit. And Ghost says 2 Yanks and some guys who wear bikini briefs to the beach. Fair enough, fair enough. So let's talk about Khachanov Korda first, because I feel like that is one of the more evenly matched quarterfinals for sure. I think it's, on paper, it is a 50-50 in my opinion. Now, you might say Korda is a favourite, but I think we have to think about how well Khachanov's been playing in Grand Slams recently. He has been playing very, very well. He's been someone who, in my opinion, has probably overperformed in the Grand Slams and played at the level I expect in other tournaments. Whereas someone, and I always use this example, but it's all about Hubert Hurkacz. I feel like he really underperforms in Grand Slams and he plays at the level he should be in other tournaments. And I feel like those two are polar opposites in that sense. Matthew's saying here, Ben Shelton doing a bit of a Raducanu, just playing free with no expectation. That's a very good point, Matthew, to be honest. And it's interesting who would be, if, for example, if Ben Shelton was to win the Australian Open, which, you know, is very left field, I guess, a lot of people might say, but he's made the quarterfinals. He's only 3 matches away from that, right? So we have to at least consider him. Is it harder? Would it be a better tournament win than Raducanu's, or would it be Ben Shelton? Because, as I said, Ben Shelton's never played outside of his home country. At least Raducanu had. But Raducanu hadn't played as many matches as Ben Shelton had when she won her Grand Slam, whereas Shelton has played a lot of matches. Well, he's played a fair amount of matches, but in the US, because there's a lot of tournaments there that he can play. And Matthew saying Khachanov has good fuel in the tank, mentally and physically easy previous round win. Yeah, exactly. Although he did have a couple of lung busting rounds before, didn't he? And yeah, you say about the head to head. Yeah, I think in terms of the head to head, I'll actually talk you through that, and that's exactly what I wanted to talk about first. They've only played each other 3 times. So only 3 matches between the two players. And Sebastian Korda's won the last 2, which have been on indoor hard and outdoor hard. So one was in Antwerp in 2022, and he won 7-5, 7-6, like very tight match. And then in Cincinnati last year as well, on outdoor hard, Sebastian Korda won 6-3, 6-4. So a more convincing victory. Whereas at Wimbledon 2021, I remember them having a very scrappy match, which ended up resulting in a 10-8 win in a final set to Karen Khachanov. So that, I guess, highlights my point about him playing better in slams and best of 5 than in other tournaments. So I do think the head-to-head 2-1. There's not really much in it. The 1-5-setter, they won best of 5 match they played. Khachanov won, but recent events have shown that Korda has been a better player. And I think, going into this, you'd expect him to be a slight favourite. I don't gamble, so I don't know what the odds are, but I assume he's maybe a slight favourite. In terms of the win, prediction-wise, I'm going to talk about that in a second. I want to talk about where the match could be won or lost first, because I want to give you guys a proper breakdown of it. So I guess we can talk about serve and return dynamics. And someone said in here, how old is Shelton? Does anyone know? Yeah, he's 20. He's 20. But Karis, thanks for joining in. So Khachanov and Korda. So where can this match be won or lost? So I think a lot of it's going to come down to the serve return dynamics, because Khachanov has been serving very well. I saw the stats against Nishioka. He was serving incredibly well. That's why he managed to double bagel him, which Nishioka looked very fed up about, obviously, as you can imagine. He wasn't really seen as someone with a dangerous and powerful serve, a serve that would actually you'd be scared of. Whereas I actually feel like in the last 6 to 12 months, his serve has gotten better. It's not the case that he has just been hitting his spots better, which he has been, but I also think the MPH is up a little bit on that serve, and he's also been able to be more consistent behind that serve as well, behind the first serve. The forehand with that very extreme grip, a lot of people probably think it's almost like crane-like the way he hits the forehand. A lot of people were talking about how technically it was never going to work, and he would never go far in a Grand Slam. He'd never win a slam or win important titles or progress into the top 20, top 15, top 10, because he had too many technical flaws in his game. Now, I think after seeing someone like Daniel Medvedev, I think we can all safely say that you can have those sorts of nuances to your game, those sorts of idiosyncrasies to your game, and you can still have success as long as it works for you and you're also open to adapt and change. Like Medvedev at the moment is now stuck in a little situation where he lost to Seb Korda because he's running out of answers to people being able to combat his deep return position. So Khachanov, I think, had those same questions, and he's kind of got over that a little bit by really bulking up his serve. And we saw it against Nick Kyrgios at the US Open in the quarterfinals. He outserved Nick, which is crazy. Think about someone outserving Nick Kyrgios. You don't really see that much, right? So that was extremely impressive. Against Nishioka and throughout this tournament, he's served well as well. So that's going to be a massive factor, I think, is how well the Russian is able to serve on the day, and how well can Korda return. How well is he going to be able to anticipate that serve? Korda generally is pretty good on the return of serve. In saying that, Khachanov will not also be afraid to come forward. He does prefer to trade from the back of the court, but I think he's realized with his height, with his serve, where he has been serving, he should really be trying to come forward as well. And he's not a bad volley at the net, not as natural as Korda, but still, efficient enough that he should be utilizing that part of his game. For Seb Korda, he also has a fantastic serve. And what we're going to do, actually, and I may as well bring it up, is go through some of the tennis insights in a second. And I'll talk about that because it kind of feeds into some of my points. So Korda, for me, and it will be interesting to see whether my points match up the actual statistical backing of that or not. Maybe it does. Maybe I'm completely wrong. So as I said, I think he's a more natural return. I think serve-wise, his serve is has maybe gone under the radar a little bit. I don't think people realize how good his serve is. And maybe it's because he hasn't really gone deep in a lot of these tournaments. Guys as well in the chat, thank you for tuning. Keep the comments coming. Keep the questions coming. I'll get to all of them. Don't worry. I'll get to all of them. And yeah, so I think with Korda, his serve, like we saw against Medvedev, got him out of a lot of trouble. He's not afraid to serve and volley or serve and then transition with the approach shot, come forward and then finish it off there. He's also happy to trade from the back of the court. I think in the backhand-to-backhand exchanges, he'll probably be pretty comfortable with Khachanov. Khachanov will look to try and revert to the in-to-win forehand as soon as possible and break up that pattern very, very quickly, I would imagine. Whereas for Korda, I don't think he has that issue. On the forehand or backhand, he's pretty comfortable on both. That's a real plus and positive in Korda's game, is that I don't really see a huge weakness in his baseline game. There can be inconsistencies with his shot tolerance, but generally speaking, his backhand and forehand, there aren't many specific scenarios where I think, oh, he doesn't look very good. Maybe on the stretch on the backhand side, but everyone, to be fair, on tour doesn't like being stretched on their backhand side. I mean, even Alcaraz, we saw last year, who's got a great engine, struggled with it. He did, to be fair to him, manage to paper over that crack against Jannik Sinner at the US Open. And, maybe that's something for Korda to think about. But Korda also moves pretty effortlessly on the court. And, I made a comparison. Like, I'm not trying to say that he's as good as this player or he's going to be anywhere near as good as this player, but he has these sorts of, the way that he's composed, the composure he has on court reminds me a little bit of Roger Federer. Just the way that he moves, he's very calm, like in his demeanor as well. And everything just looks, he's got effortless power. I think it was Djokovic said before the Adelaide final that, he has easy power from the back of the court. Before we get into the stats, because there's a couple of insights I want to talk about, I'll just go through some of these comments. Guys says Ben Shelton is not doing a Raducanu, brother. He has an immense college success before going pro. I think Khachanov looks really, really strong. He's my dark horse for the finals. Wow, that's very interesting. Matthew says, did Korda have his peak performance versus Medvedev, or can he replicate that level? Yeah, he had a little bit of a hangover, didn't he, from that against Hakac? I think for sure he did. He did have a hangover against Hakac, and he managed to, in the end, kind of get through that hurdle. It would be interesting to see. I imagine that was a little bit of a wake-up call as well. Hakac is a very good player. I mean, I'm not saying that Korda should have won very easily, but at the end of the day, given the level I think both were playing going into that match, you would have expected Korda to win. I think he can replicate that level. And I think the better the opponent, the better he seems to play, honestly. Because his game, his technique, his base tends to hold up against those players. And I think, you talk about saying when they were younger, someone like a Zverev, he has such a solid base. When he, as a youngster, he had a solid base as well. That's why he was able to, say, beat Novak at the ATP finals, so many years ago, but a few years back, because he had that solid base. There's only a few players on tour that are at that age and have a solid enough base and all-round game that they can actually trouble someone like a Djokovic. And I would say, Korda is one of them. Of course, Alcaraz has already beaten Nadal and Djokovic, and Holger Rune did it against Djokovic as well in Paris. So those are a couple of the youngsters coming through. Korda hasn't beat any of those guys yet, but he's had, he's been serving for the match against Nadal last year in one of the tournaments. He also had match point against Djokovic in Adelaide. So there's a reason, right? There's a reason why that's happened. Ghost is crane like, yeah, his forehand. Have you seen Khachanov's forehand grip and the way that he hits it? It's very, very it's crane-like. It is. Yeah, I think you have to watch it in slow-mo to understand. Ashley in the house. Hi, Ashley. How you doing? Guys, we've just gone through and done a quick breakdown of Khachanov Korda. I'll go through the other three quarterfinalists. Then we've got the WTA to go through as well. I'm also going to do a quick tennis insights, which is a really cool tennis analytics platform. And they did all the analysis and analytics and data for the ATP finals, and they actually have their own page on Instagram. I do recommend following it. I'm not advertising them for money. I don't get anything from it, but I, as a tennis fan, I'm really intrigued by it, and I think it's great but they have that information free for everyone to look at and use. Ghost says, Rafa has adapted his game a few times in his career. Indeed. Well, actually says, is there anyone who can stop Nole? That's the question, isn't it? That's the question we're going to try and answer in this video. Matthew says, just check the forecast predicting showers in Melbourne. Will it be indoors? I think if it's indoors, it obviously does help the big servers. And I guess with Khachanov, Korda doesn't really make a difference because both guys are big servers. Ghost says, okay, it's a good question. When you say Korda's serve is so good or is good, do you mean aces or percentage or a strong second or what? Okay, so what I mean is a good example is him against Medvedev. He didn't actually serve more aces than Medvedev, but what he did was the first serve was good enough for him to go on and win that point. He was able to dictate from shot one on his serve in most of the points. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean it was an ace, but he would hit a portion of aces, a portion on returnable serves as well, or the return he'd get back from Medvedev was short, and he was able to step in and either put that ball away or approach the net and finish it off at the net, or he was able to actually just come to the net because he knew that, okay, he'd be clever and go, okay, I'd hit a short slice set out wide on the juice side, and then I'd transition well, come forward to the net, easy volley, because if Medvedev's going to pass me, he's going to have to hit $1 million shot down the line on the stretch, or around the net post, which is, that's a 1 in 20 shot to hit. So, and he's probably not going to try and opt for that choice anyway. He's probably going to try and go low cross court and make the volley difficult for Korda. But the good thing that Korda has in his tool bag is his hands at the net, and he's pretty good at being able to have loose wrists at the net. And he's very, very comfortable volleying at most heights, to be honest with you. He just looks very calm at the net. So, anything else on... Ghost says, Korda is so chill. I'd love to... Oh, God, okay, let's not read that. That's an oversight on my part. Matthew says, for me, if you told me that Rublev versus Rune and Khachanov versus Korda meet again in Australian Open 2024, I strongly favour the young guy. Right now, the young guy is still mentally developing. Can't pick who wins, but I do think Khachanov versus Korda is a 5-setter. Yeah, it's got 5-setter written all over it. Ivan says, sup. Hi, Ivan. How are you doing? Thanks for tuning in. Okay, right. Ghost says, I got you, Fazan. I never thought of Korda as a serve master. Well, maybe this will change your mind. So these are tennis insights I'm talking about. I'll just bring this up now. So you can see here, this is a very basic one. There's two slides to go through. So one is just talking about their style of play. So they've got Korda as an attacking baseliner, and for Khachanov, big server and solid baseliner. So interesting characterizations of both players' games. This is where it gets interesting, and hopefully you guys can see this well enough. So what this is a, you guys must have played computer games at least, a few times in your life, right? And when you play those sports games or any type of like skill game, they have some sort of metric, right, to show you, this is the ability of your player, especially on tennis games, if you play tennis games or football, games, for example. This is similar to that, but it's in real life, obviously, right? So it's what it is. So Sebastian Korda is in red, Karen Khachanov's in blue. So all the stats for Sebastian Korda are in red, and for Karen Khachanov, they're all in blue. The numbers that are in dark blue or black, that's the tour average in the last 52 weeks. So all these stats have been compiled from the last year as of today. And you've also got here, they're saying 2023 early form trends. So these are trends that are happening in 2023. So, for example, in attack has gone up in 2023, serve quality and forehand quality. They're saying that in 2023 at the start, that's where, for some reason, people are attacking more. The serve quality's been up, forehand quality's been up. I imagine it's because I imagine it's because the Australian Open, historically has been a very attacking tournament because of how quick the courts have been. The courts are quick, but the balls are quite dead. Ghost says, where did you get this diagram thing? So this is what I was talking about. It's actually on Instagram. It's a page called Tennis Insights. They're an official tennis data analytics platform, and they did all the stats. I don't know if anyone watched the ATP finals, you would have seen they had like forehand quality or in attack, or they had backhand quality, and it was a metric out of 10. So all of these metrics here, the serve quality down to the backhand quality, they're all out of 10. And then the percentages are, of course, all out of 100%. And Ashley says, what is this Spider-Man graph? What's steel? Yeah, so let's go through it. And then you guys, if you have any questions, you can let me know. But it is really, I think it's really useful, honestly. And it also, what it does, it helps me understand whether my perception of what I'm watching, of what my eye test tells me, is correct or not. And if it's not, then what I do is, when I watch that player play again, I think, okay, this is what the metric's saying. This is what my eye test is. Why is it not marrying up? And then I try to understand why. Yeah, Ghost says, it's interesting how narrow the differentials are down to decimal points. Exactly. Right, let's go through it then anyway. So serve quality is the first one. So the tour average is 7.5 out of 10. So pretty good, right, on tour. The tour average is not bad. Both players are equal at 7.8. Now, you might say only 0.3 over the tour average. Well, ironically, Korda, when he went into the Medvedev match, his serve quality was 8.2 from what I remember. I remember seeing that and thinking, that's crazy. Now, of course, since then, he's played a few more matches. So this is interesting. 7.8 is only 0.3 over the average, but that small margin, it makes a big difference, right? It does. And we know that tennis is a sport of small margins. But that's interesting. And the fact that both of them are kind of neck and neck. Return quality, now this is where it interests me a lot. And I guess that's where Ghost is talking about it here. He says, so Khachanov is above average and above Korda on return quality. This to me is really intriguing because, like Ghost is saying, I'm actually surprised about this because the tour average is 6.5, and well, if we're just looking at it from a numbers point of view, Korda's is 6.6, Khachanov's is 7.0. So Khachanov's a good 0.5 above that. Khachanov's only 0.1. So he's just above the tour average, right? Now, what's going to be intriguing is when I do watch the match later on, and when you guys watch the match later on, what are the returns? What's the returning going to look like? You know, who's going to be able to get more breaks of serve? And is it going to be because the serve quality is not as good? Well, this stat's telling us that the serve quality is about equal. So it's going to be interesting, right? It's going to be interesting. So for forehand quality, this is where it gets quite interesting because what I like to do is, for serve and return, I like to add up. I know you don't have to do this, but I do. I add up both numbers, and it gives me an overall serve and return number, and then an overall ground stroke or baseline number, right, for forehand and backhand. So for serve and return, it's 14.4 for Korda out of 20, and for Khachanov it's 14.8. So he's kind of just in front of the serve return dynamic. For forehand quality, Korda's 7.8 and Khachanov 7.5. So obviously, pretty high for both of them, but the tour average is 7.2, which, is pretty good. So they're both above the tour average, as you'd expect. But backhand quality is where it gets interesting. So Khachanov's is actually 7.5, his backhand quality, which is a lot more than I was expecting. And interestingly, Korda's backhand average is only 7.2. Now, the tour average is 7. So Korda's baseline numbers are telling me that he's at 15 out of 20, whereas Korda's at a 15 as well. Sorry, Korda is at a 15, and as is Khachanov, so they're equal. So what I'm gaining from this is that Khachanov is slightly better than the serve return dynamics and from the baseline, well, it's kind of anyone's game. Right? That's what the numbers are saying anyway. The steal number is interesting, and this is where I guess there could be a slight difference. And Ghost asked about it earlier, like what does steal mean? Well, steal is all about the percentage of points that you win from a losing position. So points that you're not expected to win. So for example, if someone, say Korda hits a first serve into play and Khachanov's on the stretch, and then Korda has a short ball to attack, he attacks the short ball, and then Khachanov, manages to, hit a lob, and then he's still stretching, he's defending the whole point, and then he hits a worldie of a pass from, an angle, or one of those points that Murray won, for example, against Khachanov, where he's running left and right. And that's an extreme example, and he's managing to return all of those overheads, all of those smashes, and eventually Khachanov makes a mistake. That's a steal, right? Murray's stolen that point. There's no way in normal circumstances he should be winning that point, but he has. So that's what steal means. And Korda's above the tour average at 33%, but Khachanov's actually below the tour average at 29%. So that, to me, tells me that Khachanov is not able necessarily to come back from adverse scenarios, adverse situations, and uncomfortable moments, and then come back in that point to win it. And that, I think, also probably points to a mental factor as well. Go says, so it's still also a pressure point. No, so pressure point is when you say you're a break point down or a break point up, and the really big points, those are the pressure points. Steal is just any point. And then baseline battle is interesting. I mean, Korda, we're talking about forehand and backhand quality, but on the baseline battle, Korda's slightly better. He's at 51%, Khachanov 49%. The tour average is 50%, so they're kind of much the muchness, really. And conversion is converting your break points opportunity. So 68% is the tour average. Both guys are slightly below. 67% for Korda, 66% for Khachanov. In attack, the tour average is 22%. Korda's 23%, so slightly above. 22% for Khachanov. So I'll probably statted you guys out, so I'll leave it there in terms of the statistics. We'll go back to the quarterfinal previews, but hopefully that was something of interest to you guys. I mean, I don't know whether it was or not. Ghost says, I'd love to see Runa's stat on backhand quality versus the field. Yeah, so I can bring them up. What they do is they do one of these stats for one ATP match per day during the slams. That's what they've been doing. I'd like to see it for the WTA as well, but they haven't done any for the WTA. I wonder whether they're only commissioned to do it for the ATP side, which is a shame. But yeah, I mean, to me, it's interesting. It's obviously something to be taken with a little bit of a pinch of salt, because they are, of course, all stats basis. It's also over a 52-week average, and anyone can suddenly play better on the day. You can't win with just numbers alone, of course. A lot of it is to do with the mental game as well. So let's go back to these matchups. So we've talked about, Go says, got to go. Thanks for the insight pick. Fascinating. Thank you, guys, for the super chat as well. Appreciate it. Andre is saying, go, Magda, go. Yeah, Magda Linette, we're going to talk about her in a bit. We're just going to finish off the ATP bits, and then we will go through it. So if anyone has any questions or queries on the ATP quarterfinals, make sure you ping them in this chat, and then I'll address them as well as we go through. So the next one is Tsitsipas versus Lehecka. This is a really interesting matchup, because I wasn't expecting Lehecka to get anywhere near the quarterfinals. Honestly, it's his first ever, Grand Slam, well, Australian Open anyway, and he hasn't really been on my radar. Honestly, I know he played in the Next Gen Finals, and he is clearly a talented player, but he's mainly seen as a player who is below the rung of your Alcarazes, Sinners, your Holger Runes, for example, and maybe even below like a Nakashima, who won the Next Gen Finals, and a Korda. So not many people are talking about the Czech player, but he clearly has forced us to talk about it, and that's a great thing. He has a great drive and determination. He's only 21 years old. His ranking is only 71 currently. So this little run at the Australian Open will really help his ranking going forward. For Tsitsipas, of course, at number 4, they've only played each other once, which was in Rotterdam on indoor hard last year in the semi-final on indoor hard. And Tsitsipas won in 3 sets. Now, Lehecka won the first set 6-4. Interesting to see Lehecka come through that first set as well. For Tsitsipas, though, we know he can have a lapse in concentration. We saw it against Yannick Sinner. He was 2 sets to love up, and then he surrendered that 2-set lead. And yes, Sinner played some good tennis. He started utilizing the drop shot well, etc. But Tsitsipas, he he can tend to surrender 2-set leads or a lead and then really make it hard for himself. So for Tsitsipas, it's going to be really crucial for him that he maintains his mental fortitude throughout this whole quarterfinal, because if I'm being honest with you, he can't really afford a 5-setter, because if he plays against Khachanov or Korda, even if they played a 5-setter, it's going to be a lot harder. If he comes through this match against Lehecka in straight sets, for example, he puts himself in a really good position to make the final, and he wants to be fresh if he's going to play, for example, Novak Djokovic, right? He doesn't want to have a lot of yards, a lot of time on the clock in this tournament. Matthew says here, Lehecka lost in doubles today. Not a big issue, but I worry about his mental and physical stamina at this stage after the last 2 rounds. Steph in 4 for me. Yeah, it's an interesting one, because for Lehecka, he has had some very, very interesting matches. And in fact, let's talk about his run so far. So he beat Coric in the first round, which was a really impressive win. I know Coric was injured, but look, we have to give credit where credit's due. Coric was seen as a dark horse for the whole tournament by a lot of people. He also beat Chris Eubanks in 4 sets. He's a pretty good Grand Slam player as well. Beat Cam Norrie, which is a fantastic win in 5 sets as well. Cam Norrie, again, had a slight issue in terms of injury, but again, we can't take it away from him. It's a great win over a fantastic player. And then he beat someone who, I think a lot of people had high hopes for at least going to the quarterfinal stage or semifinals, or even a final. Felix Auger-Aliassime, the Canadian, who was the last person to fall foul to the Netflix curse. He lost in 4 sets, including 2 tiebreakers. And Jiri Lehecka played some really, really good stuff. I'm actually quite impressed with his game as well. It's pretty well rounded generally. Jiri Lehecka's game, even, sorry. And what I really like about his game is his willingness to come forward to the net. I've noticed this younger crop of players coming through. They aren't afraid to approach the net. And, the era of Tsitsipas and Zverev and Medvedev, I know Tsitsipas isn't afraid, but the majority of those players at that age are a bit older. Like for example, Dimitrov, we saw the other day against Djokovic. Those players are afraid to approach the net. And the reason why is because they're afraid to get past at the net, because we've had Andy Murray, who's, some of you might say that's not a great example, but he was a fantastic player. Even now, he's still a fantastic player of a passing shot. Nadal, Djokovic, and even Fed, right, from the back of the court. These guys were completely, just incredible from the back of the court. And if the volley wasn't extremely good, you'd get passed. You get lobbed, you look silly. And that's why a lot of people then coming through were thinking, well, why am I going to become someone who serves and volleys? The court's getting slower as well. I need to be good from the back of the court. But then everyone became very samey. And I think that's also why these guys haven't had a lot of success against Nadal and Djokovic. That's their forte. That was their base coming up. Now they've added bits to their game. But people need to come with different styles of play. And I think that's why Federer was successful as well against them. I know Federer came first, but he had success against those guys because he also had a dynamic game. And I feel like these guys do have dynamic games. Holger Rune, Lehecka even, Yannick Sinner's trying to transition forward. Alcaraz isn't afraid to come to the net. And I do like that. I'm not saying that everyone needs to rush the net, but at least have that as part of your game, a willingness to be different, to have variety in your game. Ashley says, what's Lehecka's ranking? 70-ish? Yeah, he's 71 in the world, Ashley. So his ranking is going to skyrocket after this tournament. It really will, and I'm really happy for him. But yeah, at 71 in the world, no one's expecting him to make the quarterfinals. And the people that he's beaten, he's beaten Coric, Felix Auger-Aliassime. He's beaten Cam Norrie. He's beaten some really, really good players, right? So kudos to him, no doubt. Matthew says Lehecka won over twice as many points as FAA when the rallies went above 5 shots. Will that transfer over to this match, or was that unique to Felix? That's a really, really good question. So you're saying that he won over twice as many points as FAA when the rally went above 5 shots. Oh, Okay, so let's talk about this then. Let's talk about this from a more in-depth point quickly for the Tsitsipas Lehecka one, and then we'll move on to Rublev Djokovic and Ben Shelton Paul, because we've still got the WTA side to go through as well. And I'm happy to do this for a little bit of time, to be honest, but I also don't want to bore you guys as well. So Tsitsipas, everyone knows, or if you don't know, then you should know, that Tsitsipas has one of the best serve and forehand combos on tour. Period. Like, full stop. He's top 3, no doubt. And not just top 3 on clay or hardcourt or grass, on all surfaces. That's just how good it is. His serve is a real weapon. He hits his spots beautifully. He has some variety on it as well. And it's a constant threat because his ability and willingness to come forward to the net as well gives him great options, and it makes returners think even more about what they're going to do with their return, because he is always willing to come forward when the serve's right. And sometimes he will get past because he hasn't quite executed that first serve the way he should have. But generally speaking, it is a positive in his game. And the forehand, well, the forehand, we know how good it is, and everyone compares it to different players in the past or present. And, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to say his forehand is a real threat to anyone on tour. And especially his into-out forehand is an elite tool. An elite tool. The into-out forehand, the into-in forehand, incredible. And, the serve and forehand combination just means that, generally speaking, against most players, the rally length of shots, or the rallies that go less than 5 shots, he's going to win the majority of those points because he's going to be pretty attacking in his style of play. He's not the type of player that wants to grind a lot. His shot tolerance is improving. Steph's, and he's able to get into a rally and say, look, okay, I'm happy to go, for example, forehand with you, or stick with you, or slice and change the rhythm, because he knows that, you can't just blow people away left, right, center all the time. You have to have different layers to your game, and he does have that. But I think, honestly, if Lehecka is to win this, I think he needs to drag Tsitsipas into uncomfortable places and drag him into longer rallies and make him suffer, make him struggle, and frustrate him with those longer rallies and induce those errors from Steph. Because what might happen is, if Lehecka is able to, one, have good return games against Steph, that's going to frustrate Steph. And two, if he's able to win those longer rallies like he did against Felix, which I think he is capable of doing, then Steph, we might start seeing, more backhand shanks than we're used to seeing. There's always going to be a couple with Steph, and we saw with Federer with the one-handed backhand. That's inevitable. You'll have 1 or 2 in a match. But you might start seeing more regular backhand shanks. You might start seeing some forehand shanks, or some forehands being blasted wide or long from Tsitsipas, or the first serve percentage going down. We know that he can have these small mental blips as well, Stefanos Tsitsipas. So we saw it against Sinner. He was 2 sets love up. There is definitely a chance for Lehecka to do something here. Can he win against Tsitsipas? I'm not so sure, because Steph's all-round game is continually improving, including his return. I'm not sure how. I think Lehecka's serve can be effective against Steph, but if this was Steph from a year and a half, 2 years ago, I would say Lehecka's got a really good chance, because Steph's return was really poor back then. It's now improved a fair bit. He's happy to concede that he might have to block the backhand return and get it deep into play, and then say, look, I'm happy to at least get this deep into play and try to get back to neutral, rather than having to go full swing on my backhand. I'll shorten that swing. I'm just happy to make sure that I get that back into play deep, and then reset and try and make something of this point. Make more balls than shank. Make more balls rather than shanking those backhand returns. So, look, I think, in all honesty, given that Tsitsipas has been in this stage before, I think mentally that gives him an edge as well. He knows how to handle the occasion. I think he'll know how to handle being the favourite as well. But Lehecka's young and hungry. Is it going to be a case of like Rune versus Rublev, and a very, very close one, and then Tsitsipas wins with a slight dash of more experience? I don't think so. I think Tsitsipas wins and wins in 4 sets. I think there will be a blip of sorts, and maybe Lehecka will prove me wrong. I just think in terms of quality, Tsitsipas is a slight level above at this stage in their careers. But if you were to ask me, if Lehecka carries on this trajectory and he plays the type of level we've seen in this tournament for a year, I wouldn't be surprised if he starts beating these guys, to be honest with you, and then we start talking about him like we are talking about Holger Rune and Alcaraz, because he does have something about him. He's got a pretty solid all-round game. There's not one part of his game where I think, wow, with Alcaraz, you think the forehand, or the movement. With Holger Rune, it's all about the defensive ability in the backhand. With Sinner, it's the backhand and the return ability and the elasticity of him. For Lehecka, there's not one specific thing. I think he's got a pretty good all-round game, and maybe that's why people haven't been talking about him as much as the others, because he doesn't have that one huge, weapon or, one huge attribute that stands out from the crowd. But he's a good, solid all-round player. So, yes, it's Tsitsipas in 4 for me. In terms of comments on this, Ashley says, does anyone think that Lehecka can beat Steph? Yes, as I was saying, I think, look, if Steph has a bad day or he has some sort of massive mental blip, which that can happen with him, especially if his dad's getting on his nerves, then it could be possible. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, but I just think that Tsitsipas at this stage, you would expect and almost hope in a way that given that he's made 2 back-to-back Australian Open semi-finals, that he would be able to pretty comfortably get through this at least and then find his way into a 3rd consecutive semi-final. And really, if we're being honest, it doesn't really matter who gets through this quarterfinal between Khachanov and Korda. He will be the favourite in that semi-final, and he should really win. He's got the experience. He is due really another Grand Slam final. And in all honesty, he probably should have won one by now. I know that might sound harsh if you're a Tsitsipas fan, but with the quality he has and his ability, I don't think it's that harsh, honestly. Mo says first time on Rod Laver. Hope that doesn't spook Lehecka. I don't think that will, to be honest with you. Jerafine says depends a bit on how cocky Tsitsipas is too. I think maybe. Mo says Lehecka's not played at night or on Rod Laver. Hope he settles at least by the 2nd set. Yeah, that's a good point as well. The conditions can make a difference, and I think Matthew, you're always a big advocate for the conditions, and you have a really good point on that as well. I think if it's indoors, that really does suit Tsitsipas. He loves playing indoors, and in all honesty, I think if Lehecka wants to have the best chance of winning possible, he needs it to be outdoor. Because if it's indoors, Steph is he's going to end up becoming a serve bot indoors most likely. So that won't be fun for Lehecka, I imagine. And you know what Steph's like. If it's still conditions, he trusts his backhand a lot more as well. His tosses, on his serve is just a lot more consistent. He trusts the bounce and the ball's coming back a lot more, and he just ends up being in some fantastic rhythm. We saw that he was in pretty scintillating form in the indoor swing at the back end of last year. Right, okay, Rublev and Djokovic. You've got to talk about this because, of course, Rublev did beat him last year, but the head-to-head is only 2-1. They've only played each other 3 times. Djokovic has won twice. So 2021 is their first encounter at the Nitto ATP Finals. Djokovic won in the round robin very comfortably, 6-3, 6-2. And then Djokovic lost to him last year. Lost to Andrei Rublev, that is. He had not played much tennis whatsoever. And Julia's saying here, Djokovic. We're talking about Djokovic now. And yeah, so for Rublev versus Djokovic, the fact that Djokovic lost that doesn't really mean much to me. I mean, he got Bagel in the last set, but I actually covered that match. I did commentary for that match. I remember watching it. And you could just tell that Djokovic wasn't anywhere near the type of level that we normally expect him to be, because he'd had a long time out of the sport because of the Australian Open debacle, for example. So, yeah, that was that was obviously the case. I don't think it was a fair reflection of the head-to-head. In terms of the most recent match, he lost to Djokovic 6-4, 6-1 at the ATP finals only a few months back. Now, I have to say that wasn't a particularly good performance by Rublev, but I have to be honest, I was hoping that Holger Rune would come through against Rublev because I thought, and I still think, that Holger Rune would have given Djokovic a harder and tougher match. I just think that Rublev is almost tailor-made for Novak Djokovic. The way that he plays it just suits Djokovic's game down to a T, and he will just say, "I'm happy at times to trade with you from the back of the court, and you're going to make a mistake first because my shot tolerance is a lot better than yours." And that's kind of a simple way of looking at it, but that's kind of how I see it at times. And Go says here, David Law on the Tennis Podcast was speculating that Djokovic was trying to send a message to the Aussie fans by rolling over De Minaur hard. Maybe, and Go says, I really don't know who can stop him. Talking about Djokovic, and Ashley said the same thing, who can stop Djokovic? Can anyone stop him? And I guess that's the real question because it's a tough one to think about. I don't know. The way he played against De Minaur, and again, against Alex de Minaur, a lot of people thought that, he might struggle because De Minaur or Demon has really good legs. He's able to, find some good angles as well on the baseline exchanges, and he might be able to stretch Djokovic out, especially his hamstring, given that he's had some issues with his hammy in the last few matches. It's strapped up clearly. He did say, though, after this match against Alex de Minaur, where he absolutely destroyed him, blitzed him. I mean, just ridiculous that his hamstring feels okay. So the strapping's there, but they've obviously either given him painkillers or some sort of pain injection, for example, and he feels okay. Obviously, there is some sort of issue there. I don't know how big or small it is. Probably a small strain of some sort, I would imagine, which isn't ideal, but they probably just numbed it, and he'll then I imagine he'll be fine for the rest of the Australian Open. If you're someone who's thinking or banking on Djokovic being injured and losing because of that, that's not going to be the case. If someone's going to beat him, they have to take the racket out of his hand. Now, Rublev, to be fair, does have the ability to blow people off the court, but he's going to have to play an incredible match. Like, I'm not joking. One of the best matches he's ever played in his life. He's going to have to come up with a career best performance or somewhere near to that to beat Djokovic. Not tomorrow, it'll be in 2 days' time or a day and a half. Because the way that Djokovic played against De Minaur, and then you compare that to the way Rublev played against Rune, where he actually, by the way, could have lost very easily. He had 2 match points to save against Rune first, and then he himself took his 3rd match point after those 2 match points against him, and he's just played 5 sets as well. Djokovic has just clean swept De Minaur in straights really easily. It just seems like a mismatch at this point. I think the only chance Rublev has of winning is if somehow he comes out and he's hitting the ball extremely sweetly from ball 1, and Djokovic isn't quite... And Djokovic can do this. Sometimes he doesn't start off the quickest. Rublev has to take it away from him straight away and try and get into a position that Sinner was in at Wimbledon last year, where he was 2 sets to love up. And then from there, it's a question of, can Rublev keep this up for 3 straight sets? And also, can Djokovic, somehow, for Rublev, he's thinking, can Djokovic just stay at this level, or is he going to start going through the gears, which is exactly what he does when he goes 2 sets love down, or, he struggles to figure out someone. He starts calculating, he then puts together a plan. Okay, this is what I need to do. Right, initiate. And then next thing you know, he's going through the gears. And it's so hard then for anyone to do anything against him, because he is the best player left of this of these 8. He is, and I really do think that the tournament is in his hands. If he doesn't win, it's probably because he hasn't played particularly well, and the opponents played really well. I can't see him playing the level that he played against De Minaur against any one of these guys. And if any one of the guys play their best level, I don't see them beating Djokovic at his level against De Minaur. Honestly, that's just my honest opinion. But in terms of looking at analytically, I think the problem is that even though Rublev's backhand has improved, in the backhand to backhand exchanges, Djokovic absolutely wrecks him. Like, genuinely wrecks him. And then what he does as well, which is very clever, Djokovic, is he utilizes the backhand slice a lot. Rublev doesn't like balls coming at him at different paces and different spins. He wants to get into a rhythm with his hitting. His whole game is based upon explosive hitting from the back of the court and blowing your opponent away with winners with power. And obviously, if Djokovic is able to change his spin, his angles, his pace on his ground strokes, which we know he can do, then Rublev's going to struggle to really get a grip in those baseline exchanges. So really his best bet, Rublev, is to try and win the majority of the shorter points and try and make sure they are that generally in a match, there's a larger portion of shorter points than usual, because the longer the point goes on, the more chance Djokovic has of winning it. And the other problem that Rublev is going to find is that Djokovic has now arguably got a top 5 serve on tour. And, Rublev's not the best returner. So that dynamic also isn't in his favor, because Djokovic is hitting his spots. He's also not afraid to now come forward and volley. And his volleying is actually not that bad. He's got pretty good hands in the net, to be honest with you. And his athletic ability, we know, is incredible. Rublev's returning isn't the best. So that's an interesting dynamic, because I don't know how that one's going to play out. And then Djokovic is arguably the best returner ever. Rublev's serve, his first serve anyway, is pretty good. So he might get some free points on that. But Djokovic, knowing him, will be able to find a way to figure that out. I mean, he figured out Nick Kyrgios' serve in the Wimbledon final. He'll definitely be able to figure out Rublev's serve, you'd imagine. And then, that just leaves, just the rest, his second serve, which his second serve is not great. Djokovic will most likely punish that. I just don't see how Rublev beats Djokovic. I'm talking about it, and I'm still thinking about the match and how I can't see any way that Rublev wins this. The only way I can see that Rublev wins this match is if Djokovic somehow, I don't know, if Djokovic starts missing shots that I've never seen him miss. And, his serve percentage is down to like 40%, and he's missing returns like I would never expect. And Rublev's managing to play a blinder and blow him off the court. There's no world that I see Rublev being Djokovic. And I think if both players are relatively fit like they are at this stage, I don't even know how Rublev beats him in any condition on any surface. Like, genuinely, just because of the styles, it just doesn't match up well for me at all. But let's see. I hope Rublev proves me wrong. I hope he at least takes a set off Djokovic and, really gives it a good go, because I really like him. As a player, he's really exciting to watch. He seems like a great guy off the court as well. But Djokovic is just so ominous at the moment. The Australian Open is his home, really. I mean, he's looking to win here 10 times. The matchup isn't great. I know the head-to-head only says 2-1, but as I said, the one loss against Rublev, Djokovic hadn't played. That tournament was his first tournament in like 6 months or something. He looked like he was gassing. It doesn't really mean much to me, honestly. Joseph says, Korda like father, like son. Yeah, so we just talked about Khachanov Korda earlier. Do check it out after the stream's done. We went into it in depth, and also there was a good little insights profile on it as well, if that's of interest to you. So I recommend checking that out. I shared it on the screen. We'll see. If Korda can do it, that would be very impressive. Gerald Fine says, I'm looking forward to Khachanov Korda. Yeah. How has Karen made 2 quarterfinals in a row? That's a very good question. We were talking about that as well, Joseph. I was saying that Khachanov is a player who has really overperformed, I think, in my opinion. He's overperformed at the Grand Slams, which is a great thing. He's made back-to-back quarterfinals, and he made a semi-final, of course, of the US Open, because he beat Kyrgios in that quarterfinal of the US Open, and he lost to Ruud in the semi-finals. Whereas someone like a Hakac always underperforms at Grand Slams, and then he plays at the performance levels he should be in other tournaments. Whereas I feel like Khachanov plays at his normal level, probably in other tournaments, in my opinion, and then overperforms at Grand Slams. Matthew says, should be noted that the top half of the draw, i.e. Steph, Lehecka, Korda, Khachanov played quarterfinals Tuesday and semifinals Friday. 3-day rest. Yeah, that's true. That can make a difference. It can make a difference unless they play 5 sets, for example, and then Djokovic play it's a straight set victory. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think at this stage of the tournament, everyone's played a little bit of tennis. I'll go through actually, interestingly, before we go on to Shelton and Poole, this is a time on court for the men's. So obviously you can see Novak Djokovic isn't on here, which means he's nowhere near the top. These are the top 5. So Shelton is at 11 hours and 56 minutes, which is nearly 12 hours on court, which is a pretty long time. He has played some 5-setters, so no surprise there. Sebastian Korda at 11 hours and 28 minutes. Tommy Paul, 11 hours on the dot. Yuri Lehecka is just under 11 hours at 10 hours and 57. Andrei Rublev at 10 hours and 38. So it kind of tells you how much time people have been spending on course, which is interesting. Joseph says Korda had 3 sets and Karen has dropped 2. Yeah. Right, okay, let's go on to Ben Shelton versus Tommy Paul, because Ben Shelton has been a surprise package, I think. The real surprise package. Lehecka's a surprise one as well, but this is like, in my opinion, this is, the biggest surprise, in my opinion, of the Australian Open so far, is the fact that Ben Shelton has made a Grand Slam quarterfinal. He never left the United States before this tournament, yet he has a Australian Open quarterfinal incoming. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. I mean, it's just unbelievable to think about. So, I mean, how does this one work? It's an all-American affair. Tommy Paul is very, very solid. We know that. Let's just quickly go through who they've played so far, because I think that really gives us a good idea as well of who they've played and how they've looked. Because Ben Shelton, to me, has been very impressive. He beat Zhang in the first round in 5 sets, in a final set tiebreaker clutch. Then 2 tiebreakers and a 7-5 against Jarry. So again, pretty clutch. Poprin, a tiebreaker in a second set, clutch again. And then 3 tiebreakers against JJ Wolf. Lost 2 of them, 1-1, 1-5 against JJ Wolf. So he kind of likes a tiebreak, that's for sure. He's a lefty that always poses its own problems. I haven't seen a huge amount of him, because before this tournament, he wasn't really on my radar. I'd heard of him. I knew about him from the US Open and stuff as well, and from people talking about him, saying that, he's going to be a talent coming through. But he was never really someone that I'd seen a lot of footage of. So it's been interesting to see him play. Tommy Paul, of course, has been around a lot longer, and he's someone who I guess was in a similar scenario to Ben Shelton not too long ago. He's someone who people thought was going to be the next big thing after being a very good junior, but hasn't maybe quite lived up to the expectations. He's only 25 years old still. I mean, they've still got a fair amount of time left. He beat Jan Struff in straights, and David Fokina in 5, coming from 2 sets to 1 down. Beat Brooksby in straights, and then RBA in 4. So those last 3 wins are very, very impressive. Look, I think this might be the end of the road for Ben Shelton. I think Tommy Paul might big brother him, to be honest with you, and not bully him on court, but I think his experience might prove a little bit telling. Although in saying that, he's got the pressure, because people probably expect him to win. They probably expect Tommy Paul to win, given his age, given that he is the more experienced player. And is he going to handle that pressure? I'm not too sure. Whereas Shelton's got nothing to lose. He does have that kind of fearlessness about him, like Matthew was saying earlier. Matthew says, I'm tipping Shelton to win. Like with Fritz losing to Holt and Brooksby last US Opens, it's hard facing a much younger countryman. I apply the same thinking here. I actually agree. I think Shelton's going to win in 5 sets because of the lack of pressure really on him. Honestly, I think he's just enjoying it, and he probably thinks, well, I'm going to be at this stage again in my career. For Tommy Paul, he's 25, so yeah, he's still got quite a few years left. But when's the next time he's going to make a quarterfinal? He won't know. He might not have a better opportunity in the next year, 2 years, for the draw to open up like this, and for him to have a chance of going very deep and even potentially winning a slam. So, there's pressure on him for that, I think. Man says, Abigail Johnson on Gil's Challenger said that Shelton has a 69% win rate on second serve, which is incredible, by the way. That is incredible. A 69% win rate on second serve. points is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. So that's a real plus, to be honest with you, because that just shows how well, one, his second serve is not super weak, and two, he's able to back it up well from the back of the court. Impressive. And that's probably why he's had a lot of tiebreakers, because people are finding it hard to break his serve, which is a positive thing. So for me, I'm going to go for quarter in 5 in the Khachanov quarter 1. Tsitsipas, Lehecka, quarter in 5. Tsitsipas in 4 against Lehecka. Djokovic in straight sets against Rublev, and then Shelton in 5 against Paul. So those are my men's predictions. Let me know if you agree in the chat. Now let's go on to, this is the insights I'm talking about, but let's go on to the women's. This is going to be really interesting. Actually, let's see, who have you guys been voting for, by the way, in the poll? Because I put out the poll. I didn't include Ostapenko or Linette or Azarenka or Vekic, just because it only gives you 4 options. So I don't know whether you guys... you guys probably disagree. You might be like, no, it's Ostapenko. Oh, interesting. 43% of you have gone for Rybakina and 41% have gone for Sabalenka. Also, guys, I haven't even said it, but there's nearly 80 of you in the chat. Thank you for tuning in. Remember to that like button. It's a big thumbs up button. It doesn't cost you anything, I promise. It's a big thumbs up button. And do subscribe if you're new as well. Really do appreciate you guys tuning in. We will be doing Tsitsipas versus Lehecka later on. And also Pegula versus Azarenka. So both will be live play-by-play commentary streams. So yeah, do tune in for those as well. They're already set up on the channel, so do jump over, give those streams a like as well if you don't mind after this. But yeah, hit that like button, subscribe if you're new. Thank you, appreciate it. In terms of, let's see, what's this? Matthew's saying hard to not see this match being decided by tie breaks. Shelton wins in 4. Okay. Nice is Ostapenko, Pliskova, Sabalenka, Pegula. Wow, that is interesting. Okay. So you think that Ostapenko is going to beat Rybakina? Oh, I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure. It's a tough one, because, when I watch Rybakina, I do think she is an absolute monster. Like, genuinely, her serve is huge, her ground strokes are massive, and her net game's not too bad when she wants to come forward as well. It's pretty good. She just doesn't really like coming forward too much, honestly. But I think, yeah, let's talk about that one first. I think for Ostapenko to win, she needs to hit a large... she needs to hit some good numbers on first serve. She does, because her second serve is really poor. Like, it's not good at all, in my opinion. I think it's pretty pedestrian, to say the least. Against Coco Gauff, she won. Her first serve percentage was at 65%. That's pretty good. And look at win percentage behind first serve was 80%. Really good. 45% behind second serve. That's not bad, to be honest with you. But, I mean, I think, if I'm being honest, Coco Gauff didn't really cash in there. I mean, the win against Coco Gauff was mighty impressive. I think we have to say that, right? I mean, it was very good. She's clearly a very talented player. She's a former Roland Garros champion. And as Matthew says here, Ostapenko leads the head-to-head, and that's probably because of how well she strikes the ball. Rybakina is probably not used to people being able to trade with her from the back of the court with that kind of power. But I think the big question mark for me is, how is Ostapenko going to handle the Rybakina serve? If I'm being honest with you, how is she going to handle that? Because I don't really see, if Rybakina serve like she did against Swiatek, how Ostapenko returns any better, because Swiatek's a better returner than Rybakina, isn't she? I think she is. So if that's the case, then how is Ostapenko going to get any inroads on the Rybakina serve, unless she gets quite a few second serves, which, to be fair, Rybakina, that first set against Swiatek, was only serving at 45% first serves. She got it back up in the second set, but if she has a set like that, she will struggle against Ostapenko, because she's a sweet timer of a tennis ball. The big question is going to be, can Ostapenko make it awkward for Rebecca. And I think she needs to slice a bit as well and slice and dice it. Try and make sure that Rebecca is not comfortable, not in rhythm. She's trying to really get her to bend low as well, get her to stretch. She's very tall. She won't want to bend down low on the backhand side with slices. She wants to be, taking the ball waist height, shoulder height, even she won't mind. And she just can't afford for Rebecca to get into rhythm from the back of the court. So Ostapenko needs to just disturb that rhythm. For Rebecca, she's going to want to serve really well and hit her spots, and she needs to, because she doesn't, I think she will get punished. Weston says she can serve much better than she did against Iga. Agreed. And that's what I'm kind of banking on. So I'm going to go Rebecca in straight sets, which is a pretty bold call, you might say. But I just think the way she played against Swiatek, who's a better returner, and I know Swiatek didn't play her best, but she didn't play. I didn't think she played badly. I just think she played okay, and Rebecca just was better. Ostapenko, though, has a lot of confidence coming into this after the win against Coco Gauff, but I think this is maybe where her journey stops. I think Rebecca, after winning a slam as well, I think it's going to be extremely interesting to see. I don't think she really feels the pressure or expectation. I just think she expects herself to win, and she has that confidence about an air of almost arrogance about her, which is not a bad thing at this level. Wesley says Ostapenko is nowhere near as quick or athletic as Iga. That's a good question. That's a good point. She just hits a massive tennis ball, honestly. She really does. Pegula versus Azarenka, which is a match we will be covering later on today. I mean, this is a cracker, isn't it? I mean, I don't know what you guys think, but I'm very much looking forward to this. I think it's going to be really exciting to watch. I think, if I were, if someone was to say to me, you know what, you get to watch Pegula versus Azarenka, is that good? Is that one of your favorite matchups to think about in women's tennis? I would say yes. Yes, it is, for sure. The head-to-head is 2-2, by the way, between these two, which is interesting. 2-2 ranking, obviously Jessica Pegula is number 3. Azarenka is 24th. She was number 1 at one point in her career, of course, as well, in terms of the head-to-head. Look, I mean, I think Jessica Pegula hasn't spent much time on court. We saw that stat, in fact, I'll just bring it up. Oh, sorry, here we go. Time on court for women. Azarenka spent the most time, 7 hours and 20 minutes. And Pegula's only spent 5 hours and 16 minutes on court. There's a massive difference there, honestly. So that doesn't really help her cause, honestly. But in saying that, she absolutely loves she just loves these surfaces. She loves hard court. She loves the quicker surfaces. She goes missing between Wimbledon and Roland Garros. Roland Garros and then Wimbledon. She's just nowhere to be seen, really. But for the Australian Open and for the US Open, the hard court swings, she is just a danger. She is a dangerous woman. She really is. Peachy says, "Hey Fazan and QualityShot fam, pre-match chat." Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what we've just previewed the men's quarterfinals, Peaches, and with some interesting little insights diagram, which everyone thought was a Spider-Man diagram, and now we're just going through the women's quarterfinals. I'm also previewing them and then predicting them, and then we'll wrap it up. We are actually doing commentary as well for one quarterfinal tomorrow, so we're going to do Pegula versus Azarenka and Tsitsipas versus Lehecka. So yeah, tune in for those guys. Also hit that like button and do subscribe if you're new. Thank you to everyone that is tuning in. It's been great to have a chat, by the way, here. Weston says either Azarenka will play well and it will be a good match, or Azarenka will fade away like she did in Guadalajara. Yeah, that's a good point. She did fade away in Guadalajara, didn't she? Greg says Ostapenko wins it all. Wow. You know what? I mean, look, she's won a Grand Slam. People forget that. It was the French Open, to be fair, but I don't know. When I say to be fair, I'm saying because the French Open is clay, right? It's not as transferable, I don't think, as say hardcore Grand Slam win like Azarenka. Pagula for me is the favourite against Azarenka. I think she's the favourite in that half, even if she was to play Rebecca, I would say. Well, maybe. But against Azarenka, she is the favourite. I just think she is playing too well at the moment. If this was Pagula from before the tournament started, or before 2023 started, I would say, given that Azarenka's made the quarterfinal, she's obviously playing some good tennis, this is a 50-50. I think it's more now like a 70-30 because Pagula has been playing unbelievably well. Like she's visiting the Iga Bakery and she's clearly eating some of that bread because she is a absolute machine right now in a good way. She's playing some fantastic tennis. She's so powerful in the back of the court. The ability that she has to find angles as well, and also the ability to fight in points. She's a real fighter. She is on the court. And the one thing that impresses me the most is the fact that she is playing with this freedom that I think maybe she hasn't had in the past because she's always felt the pressure and expectation when she's been higher ranked. This tournament is not that. It's more an air of confidence and almost an air of arrogance in a good way that I am good. I should be winning this. I'm going to blow you off the court. And she has that rhythm on the forehand and the backhand. She can hit winners off both wings. We know that. Her serve is looking good as well, which is a massive plus because I didn't think it was always the best, but she's clearly been working on it, and her return has improved massively as well. So she's also, not too afraid to come to the net at times, which is nice to see because you feel like that's something that the women don't really add to their game. When they do, it's very tough then for players to play against them because they're not used to women rushing the net. Caroline Garcia is a good example of that. But Pagula has beaten Christian Sasnovich, Kostyuk, and Krejcikova in straight sets. I mean, there was 6-love, 6-1, absolute carnage, 6-2, 7-6, 6-love, 6-2, 7-5, 6-2. So she's just been destroying people left, right, and centre, honestly. Not a single set drop so far, which is very impressive. Yeah, I think Azarenka is powerful from the back of the court as well. We know what she brings to the table. She's obviously a massive fighter as well. I can see some really tasty rallies and exchanges in this match. I just think Pagula, given the form, given she's a bit fresher, she's a bit younger, she's almost like a younger version of Azarenka. They've got similar-ish type of games. So I'm going to go with Pagula in 3 sets. I think Azarenka might be able to nick one off her, but I can't see any more than that. Weston says Rebecca can beat Pagula. She had match points against Pagula in Guadalajara. Yeah, she can. She definitely can beat Pagula. It's just whether she would be the favourite and whether she will, I guess, is the main question. Pliskova versus Linette's an interesting one because someone said, Yazda Magda earlier in the chat, and obviously she is not the Polish player that we thought would be in the quarterfinals. We thought it would be Iga Świątek, but she finds herself in the quarterfinals. She played a really good match against Caroline Garcia. She was 3-love down and 2 breaks down in that first set. She came out beautifully, won the tiebreaker, and then won in straight sets in the end. What I would say is she seems to have this great counter-punching game. She has Radwanska, I think, in her box, and Radwanska is one of the best counter-punchers that the WTA Tours has seen. She was fantastic. Pliskova is obviously different. She's very tall. She's trying to serve big. She's trying to hit winners from the back of the court with her long levers. She's got power. She's going to try and blow you off the court. I have a feeling that Linette might be a really bad matchup for Pliskova because I think Linette's going to really frustrate Pliskova. I think she's going to bring the worst out of Pliskova because Pliskova is at her worst, in my opinion, when she is trying to overhit. She's trying to hit a lot of winners, and it's not coming smoothly or naturally to her. And I do think that that's exactly what might happen against Linette because that's her game. Her game is to frustrate, is to break people down from the back of the court. She will come forward as well, which is nice, and she'll frustrate you. She's not going to, just say, yeah, I'll trade with you from the back and, I'll try and hit winners with you and I'll make mistakes as well. No, her whole game is very, very solid. So, yeah, I think I can see Linette winning this, and I think she'll win as well. maybe in 3. I think she needs to try and figure out Pliskova's serve. That's going to be the big question, is how she combat that. I don't think Pliskova needs to worry in terms of the pace on Lynette's serve. What Lynette does well is she places it really nicely with her spot serving. She's also not afraid to come to the net, so that's an added factor to cater into your returning as well. Yeah, it's great. It's absolutely great. Head-to-head, by the way, Pliskova has a 4-1 head-to-head. So that, to me, you would then expect Pliskova to win, right? But what's interesting is the most recent match, which was in November 2022, Lynette won. Before that, they had another match in 2022 at the US Open, and Pliskova won in 3 sets. But it was a final set tiebreaker. So I think Lynette's going to win. I do. I genuinely think she's going to win. I think she's going to frustrate Pliskova, and I think she's going to win. That's my view anyway. Greg says, I love Pagula to win it all until the Bills lost yesterday. Fair enough. Sabalenka Vekic. Well, I know Weston loves Vekic, and I think she's a very solid player as well, but I can't look past Arina Sabalenka. I just think Arina Sabalenka is the favourite to win the Australian Open. She is the player that I picked before to win it all because she has looked good for the last 3-4 months, and I think it's been coming, this run again. She's consistent at most Grand Slams when she's fit, and she's in a good mental space. She obviously had some off-court issues last year because of political issues, but for Sabalenka, the win over Swiatek at the WTA finals, I said at the time that it could be a real mental boost to her to beat Iga at the WTA finals, because she lost her a couple of times in 2022. So to be here at the back end of it and go into 2023 with this positivity was really good for her. And then she started off 2023 in fantastic nick and form. And she just looks like a woman possessed, a woman who is, again, has this air of confidence about her that, she is just very, very, very mentally dialed in. She really is. She looks like a woman on a mission. I just think her whole game is extremely powerful and she's very talented. But with her, the biggest question has always been her mental side. And I think her mental side has tightened up. It really has. Double faults are a lot less than they have been in the past. I mean, Bencic actually served 8 in that match against the 2 of them, but Sabalenka only 4. She only served 4 against Mertens. She served 0 against Rogers. And she served 3 against Martinkova. Says also not any more than 4 each match, which tells you something. Tells you that she's feeling pretty good on court right now, and she is striking the ball. I mean, she is striking the ball scarily hard. I mean, she is blowing people away from the back of the court, literally. Against Bencic, I was like, what is going on? Because Bencic is not a weak player. She's a powerful player from the back of the court too, but Sabalenka was striking the ball like they were in different weight classes. Like they were, like Sabalenka was her dad. Like it was just crazy, or her mum even. It was just a beatdown in the end, and it wasn't great. It really wasn't. For Bencic, who actually didn't play a bad match, but Sabalenka was just so good. Weston says, I don't necessarily think that Vekic can beat Sabalenka right now. I think Rybakina can, though. Yeah, I agree. I think Sabalenka is going to come through this. I think she'll come through in straight sets. Unless she has a big blip and the double faults start to flow, I can't really see how she loses. She's tightened up her game nicely. She's added the backhand slice as well. She's started coming forward to the net and approaching it. The approach shots are good. They're giving her exactly what she needs in the net, which is an easy ball to put away for the most part. I think she's in a great position in this tournament. I've got her winning in straight sets, which then would set up a Pagula Rybakina semi, in my opinion, and a Pliskova Sabalenka semi-final as well. So interesting, very, very interesting. But yeah, that's my preview for the men's and women's. What's the poll saying? So the poll saying 45% for Rebecca now. Interesting. Guys, remember that like button and do subscribe if you're new as well. Really does help us out. Hitting the like button really does help. Subscribing as well, of course. Just means that we, it just means that, of course, we can get as much content out there as possible for you guys. And we will be doing streams for Pegula versus Azarenka, so commentary for that, and also for Tsitsipas Lehecka. Chris says, this, there we go. Yeah, guys, put your picks as well in the chat. I want to hear. Before we sign off, can you in the chat let me know who are your picks to win the quarterfinals for the men's and the women's, and then who you think is going to win the tournament? I'm interested. Peter says, my picks are Sabalenka. Yeah, I agree. Exactly the same as mine, Peaches. Jessica Pegula, mine as well. Magdalena, mine as well. And Rebecca. We're on the same page, Peaches. That's why you're a member. Christian says Pegula and Sabalenka is the final 100%. Deste, Calais, Colombia, Serafirmo. I'm not sure what that means, but I'm assuming, I know what the first part means. So you're saying Pegula and Sabalenka in the final, which I think is what most people are probably thinking. Obviously not everyone, but I think in terms of seedings and rankings, that's what the final would be. Chris says Donna wins, dude. Wow, okay, so he thinks Donna Vekic is going to beat Sabalenka. Maybe she will. Something in Spanish, I won't know what that means. Greg says Ostapenko, net, Pegula, Sam. Exactly. Oh, no, actually, no, it's not exactly the same. You've gone for Ostapenko over Rebecca. Interesting, okay. All right, I do like the confidence in Ostapenko there. And Chris says Donna versus Jessica, 110% in the final. Hey, okay. Then who wins in the final between those two? Is it Jessica or is it Donna? That's the question. I think personally, if Sabalenka doesn't win against Vekic and she doesn't make the final, I think it's a massive missed opportunity. And she had a similar missed opportunity at the US Open 2021 tournament where she was in the semi-finals against Fernandez. She should have won that because she was the favorite, and then she would have faced Raducanu. She would have been the favorite there as well. She should have really won that slam from that position. Instead, obviously, she ended up losing. Peter says, our thinking alike Fazan may not be a good thing. Good thing for who? That's okay. That's all right. Why not, Peaches? Weston says, Rebecca, okay. Pegula and then Sabalenka. So Rebecca, it's exactly the same as me. Okay. And then a Rebecca. So you've got Rebecca then to beat Pegula and Sabalenka to beat Lynette, with Rebecca winning in the final. If it's a Rebecca Sabalenka final, that is a serve fest. That's going to be like watching Opelka versus Isner. Okay, I'm just joking. Not that bad, but there will be aces flying down from both sides, won't there? And some massive hits. It's going to be an explosive final if we get that. To be honest with you, I'm all for it. Explosive finals are where we're at. And explosive finals are where we are at. What about the men's side, by the way? Because we went through the men's side, and should I bring that back up on screen for you guys, and then you can tell me what you think. This is the insights I was talking about, by the way. So this is the men's. So let me know who you think for the men's is going to win. Chris says, I hope for Vekic, but probably Jess gets the title. Okay. Greg says, Korda, Djokovic, Paul, Lehecka. Lehecka over Tsitsipas. Oh, that's a brave call. I'm liking it, though. That's an interesting one. That's very cool. That's very, very cool. Okay. All right. Lehecka over Tsitsipas. Can I see? I just can't see it happening. I think Lehecka beating Tsitsipas is more likely than Rublev beating Djokovic. Let's put it that way. So, yeah, I can. I got you. Peter says, Saba seems to be more dialed in this season, better than last, 100%. I think also what we have to remember is last year she was dealing with a lot of things. She got COVID. Obviously, the whole issue with Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine, etc. Not ideal. And also, I think we forget how old she is. She's only 24 years old. So last year she was 23. And when she was 22, she made the semi-finals of the US Open. So she made the semi-finals of Wimbledon that year as well in 2021. So she had a big 2021. Then coming to 2022, everyone was expecting her to win a slam probably, or make a final at least. She then, of course, unfortunately, what happened with things outside of tennis, that definitely did affect her mentally. I know because I saw on her social media. She then also got COVID as well, which didn't help. So yeah, I think just generally, she just didn't have a particularly good year. And then, after that, it was like, okay, what do you do from here? But 2023, she's recovered nicely. She's clearly mentally in a better place, and she's playing with this determined nature that I think is really, really dangerous to anyone on tour. Peter says Korda, Nole, Paul and Lehecka, exactly the same as you, Greg. Lehecka over Tsitsipas. Lexi's going to kill you both, but that's fine. She won't kill me. I pick Tsitsipas. And Weston says if Pegula and Sabalenka make it to the final, then Sabalenka will obliterate Pegula. Do you think? I don't know. I can see why you might say that. I mean, I think Sabalenka would win as well. I'm just trying to think, though. If Bagel is able to get past the 3-shot rally, past 3 shots in a rally, then I think she could potentially win it. She's got enough power from the back of the court. It's mainly the initial serve, the initial return, just trying to absorb that power. Is she able to do that? I'm not quite sure. Weston says Korda, Tsitsipas, Djokovic, and Shelton. That's exactly what I've gone for. And then Djokovic versus Korda in the final again, like Adelaide, I guess, is what you're referencing. Ooh. Okay. But who wins in the final, Weston? Who wins in the final? That's all I want to know. Don't sit on the fence. Greg says, let's go, Peaches. Yeah, exactly. Let's go, baby. Let's go. Guys, remember to hit that like button, please, as well, and do subscribe if you are new. Really do appreciate your support as always. Gary in the house. Gary says, I thought it was temporary insanity when I picked JPEG. I love these like little nicknames, JPEG, in December. Maybe not so much. Sentiment's done with Ariana all the way, but I would love to be right. No, Pegula's not a bad pick. I mean, she's been in good form, so when she reached Swiatek as well, I mean, yeah, she's been in pretty good form. Weston says, I don't know. Come on, Weston. Come on. Pick a side. Peter says, yeah, very good. Cool. Okay, what we'll do is we'll wrap this up in 5 minutes, I think, unless people have loads of questions. But yeah, fire away with any questions that you have left, and I will answer them to the best of my ability. But yeah, do check out Tennis Insights. It's this, where is it? Bring it up. Yeah, it was this, which if anyone hasn't seen it, I'll just bring it up on the screen. But it's basically a very interesting graphic from the data analyst company that did all the stats and data for the ATP finals, and they're now doing it for all tournaments. And in fact, have they been doing it with the Australian? I'm just trying to think. I don't think they have been, as in like with Eurosport or with the TV broadcaster. But obviously they're still gaining information. And yeah, they've looked good. They've looked good, to be honest with you. Weston says, Korda is so random that it's impossible to tell if he can beat Djokovic at his best or not. Fair enough. But yeah, this is basically just a little like chart almost mapping Korda against Khachanov over 52-week average, and then basically comparing it to the tour average. So yeah, they've got insights like this for loads of different players, and I shared it earlier because I thought it was really interesting. And yeah, you can find it on I think it's called Tennis Insight on Instagram. It's really cool, in my opinion, anyway. Gary says 3 Americans in the quarters not named TFL Fritz. Who knew? Korda, Tsitsipas, Djokovic, and Paul. Okay, that's the same as no, it's not. I went for Shelton. I said before the Australian Open that I did not see anyone winning 3 sets against Norley if his leg is good. Same now. Yeah, agreed. I don't think anyone beats Djokovic unless. Well, I think his leg's going to be okay. So I think the only way he loses is if he has a really poor, really poor match. That's possible. He could have a terrible match, honestly. But when's the last time that happened? A long time ago, honestly. A long time ago, to be honest. So, yeah, we'll see. We shall see. Cool. If there's any more comments or questions, get them fired into this chat. And, Yeah, Peter says Nolly can win a slam with one leg. The man is unstoppable. Yeah, at the moment, he's looking ominously good, isn't he, Peaches? And I guess the big question mark is going to be how does he look for the rest of the year as well? I think he will look fine. I think he's going to be. I reckon he's winning. Although, my predictions, to be honest, at the start of the year are probably now looking really bad because I think I'd gone for Australian Open Medvedev, Roland Garros Nadal, Wimbledon Djokovic, and US Open. Who did I go for the US Open? It wasn't Alcaraz. It wasn't Holger Rune. I don't think. It was Sinner, was it? No. Who did I go for the US Open? Oh, Zverev. I always go for Zverev. And Zverev always lets me down. I don't know why I do that. But anyway, especially the US Open, because I think the US Open is so random. Anyway, one loss for Nole since Roland Garros. Does anyone actually realise that? That's true. No, I mean, that's an incredible stat, isn't it? The fact that he's managed to only lose one match since Roland Garros, which I know obviously he didn't play a stretch, but still incredible to think about, right? Josh says, I think Djokovic is unbeatable. Thank you, sir. Please give our man a thumbs up. Enjoy the matches. Thank you, Greg. Thank you for tuning in as always. And Peter says, thanks for the pre-match results. See you soon, everyone. Yeah, thank you both. Guys, before you go, remember to that like button, as Peter and Greg have said. Also, do hit that subscribe button if you're new. If you do want to also support the channel even further, you can do so by becoming a member. It's a big join button. It really does help us out a great deal. Also, there's a super chat function if you want to obviously give tips, but obviously no obligation there as well. It's more just it goes straight back into the channel to help us give you guys as good a content as possible, and yeah, hopefully just keep on stepping up level to level. Scare says, hello, missing Monfils. Yeah, Monfils. I don't know what's going on with Monfils. Did he even play this tournament? No, he didn't. Obviously, because he had a child, didn't he? So he pulled out. I wonder if he's going to be back because he's pretty old now. And he had a pretty good 2021, 2022 kind of little resurgence. Let's see, it admits he is. Oh, hold on. This is interesting. What is this? I just went on to an article about Monfils, and it says, set to miss Australian Open, admits he's reconsidering retirement plan after the birth of his daughter. That is interesting. Yeah, we have the quarterfinals, of course, in 2022. This is interesting. What? Okay, so he's going to play 2023, 2024. He's 36. Before I said I wanted to play until I'm 40, but the more time I spend with my daughter, the more I think that I'll maybe play a bit less. So I reckon he's going to retire in 2024. I mean, he can retire now if he wants to be honest. Sakea says, Ranic says he's an inactive tennis player right now. No, I think I saw an article or someone talk about it, that he was on his way back. Oh, maybe not. Man, I hope that's not the case. Because he's a really, really good player to have on tour. Someone different, right? We want all these different styles of players on tour. One features the roundage. I mean, obviously, when you get too old and you have to retire, then that's fine. But injuries they're such a nuisance, aren't they? Injuries. It'd be so interesting to see. Like, even for example, someone like Nadal, right? He's been injured so much. Like the difference that his career would have, the difference in his career could have been massive if he'd been fit a lot more. Although in saying that, maybe it wouldn't have been. Maybe if he'd been fit more, maybe he'd have then lost more matches, and maybe he wouldn't have had the kind of mojo he has potentially and that fighting spirit, because maybe getting injured so much means he had to be that resilient. I don't know. Interesting thought, isn't it? But anyway, um, yeah. Anyways, thank you very much, guys. Really appreciate it. Hit that like button, subscribe if you're new. Otherwise, I think we will wrap it up. Yeah. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. Also, do tune in for. Actually, what I'll do is I'll put the match stream links in the description, or well, in the live chat even, and you guys can get involved hopefully, because they're going to be good. So what's first actually? It'll be Pegula Azarenka will be first. Pegula Azarenka will be first. But let's put, so this is Tsitsipas and Lehecka. Lehecka. Live commentary. And then we have. I think Pegula Azarenka is going to be really entertaining, actually. I actually arguably think it might be more entertaining than Tsitsipas Lehecka, honestly. It depends on if Tsitsipas Lehecka is able to. Sorry, if Lehecka even is able to really trouble Tsitsipas. I think he needs to win the first set as well, honestly. My first set will have a good bearing. But yeah, anyway, that's all live commentary in the chat. Thank you very much, guys. Really do appreciate it. Remember to hit the like button, subscribe if you're new. We'll see you very soon for the live commentary matches for the two quarterfinals tomorrow. And then we will be doing some more the day after as well. I'm not sure yet which ones, because until the schedule's released, it's hard to know. But we will, of course, be covering as many matches as possible, and hopefully be covering both semi-finals for the WTA and ATP side. Commentary-wise, we'll be doing previews. I might for the semi-finals. I don't know what you guys think, but I've really enjoyed doing the live, so I might do another live for the semi-finals as well before the semi-finals. So maybe it would be. Well, I guess it wouldn't be tomorrow, would it? Well, no, it would be technically, wouldn't it? Well, either be tomorrow or. Well, no, it wouldn't be. It would have to be the day after. So maybe on Wednesday evening or Thursday, I'll do a semi-final preview and maybe do it live. I actually enjoyed this a lot, to be fair. Yeah, anyway, thank you very much, guys. Stay safe and well. We'll see you on the next video. See you in the live commentaries, and thank you for tuning in for the live. I've really enjoyed it.